Dear chosen one, be still for a moment and lean in. What you are about to hear is not a fable nor a parable reserved for ancient scrolls. It is unfolding right now beneath the surface of what most call reality. And it concerns you more than you know. There are things moving in the spirit realm at this very hour. Silent wars, unseen collisions, divine justice being unsealed. And tonight, a startling truth rises from the shadows. 3 hours ago, a woman believed she was in control. She moved through her morning, with fire in her heart and venom on her tongue. But now her breath falters. Her skin, once flushed with rage, grows pale and cold. Her pulse dances with confusion fast, then faint like a soul unsure whether to cling or surrender. She lies still, caught in a terror that no medicine can name, not because of a disease, but because of a revelation. She has been poisoned, but not by a bottle, not by a stranger, not by some hand that crept through the night. No, this was a poison forged in the spirit, a poison brewed in her own heart. Be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Galatians 6:7. The trap she laid was not for a stranger, it was for you, chosen one. She whispered curses in secret, plotted harm in the quiet of the night, thinking no one was watching, but the eyes of the Lord roam the earth. 2 Chronicles 16:9. And no scheme escapes his gaze. What she spoke in darkness is now shouted from the rooftops. Luke 12:3. The weapon she fashioned turned in her hand. The venom she stirred has entered her own veins. And what she never understood is this. The snare she set did not merely fail. It snapped shut on her own spirit. The moment you drew near the trap, heaven itself stood between you and the danger, forming a shield. No darkness could penetrate. The reversal began not when she acted, but when your protected presence came into the room, and everything she intended for you recoiled back toward its source. This is the hour of exposure. Every hidden motive, every silent hex, every shadowy alliance is being dragged into the light. What she meant for harm, the Lord is using to declare his justice and his protection over you. Now, as you step forward into this divine role, I invite you to declare your readiness. Type Amen in the comments below as a sign of your acceptance, as a bold statement that you are ready to step into your God-given purpose. And make sure you stay with me until the very end, because we'll be closing with a powerful prayer for today, one that breaks chains and reclaims what the enemy tried to steal. Prepare yourself. The truth has only just begun to unfold. Now that the trap has been revealed and justice begins to stir in unseen realms, let us look deeper, not just at the outcome, but at the origin. For before a soul falls, it first strays, and before destruction arrives, it is welcomed through 1,000 quiet compromises. This woman, now trembling, breath shallow, trapped in the very darkness she once summoned, was not always this way. If you had seen her just hours ago, you might have been fooled. She moved with purpose. Her steps were firm. Her eyes glinted not with fear, but with certainty. She believed she held control, that her will could bend the world, that she could play judge, jury, and executioner over the life of another, your life chosen one. But this darkness did not fall upon her like a sudden storm. No, it crept in slowly like smoke through a cracked door. She was not born with venom in her heart. The bitterness grew in silence, nurtured by small daily decisions. Moments when she fed envy instead of grace. When she chose to water resentment rather than release it. When she let comparison carve wounds into her soul. The road that led her here began not in chaos, but in subtle disobedience. She left the city days ago, traveling to a place where even the air seemed to pulse with secrets. It was not merely remote, it was spiritually dense. The land itself seemed to carry the residue of curses whispered over generations. And deep within that forgotten corner stood a crooked house, where light dared not linger. Inside was a woman of ancient presence, withered, still but spiritually alert. Her silence was not ignorance, it was awareness. She did not offer greetings. She did not smile. She simply asked, "Who do you wish to destroy, and why?" There was no hesitation. Your name left her lips, not like a confession, but like a weapon unscathed. There was no tremble in her voice, no second thoughts, only a fierce hunger to see your light extinguished. She spoke of you as if your existence tormented her, as if your joy insulted her pain, as if your peace stood in defiance of her inner chaos. In her mind, the only way she could shine was if you were erased. She didn't want justice, she wanted erasure, not just to bruise your spirit, but to unravel your destiny, to turn your laughter into silence, and to snuff out the future that heaven has written for you. And the old woman, she did not bless or curse. She did what she always does. She listened. Then she reached beneath the table and slid forth a vial, small and black, with liquid that shimmered like moonlight trapped in ink. Alongside it, a folded paper, thin and brittle, etched with ink so dark it looked alive. Instructions, warnings, or perhaps both. But here lies the turning point. She clutched the vial with trembling desire, eyes burning with a false sense of triumph. To her, it was the key to power, her weapon of retribution. She barely glanced at the paper, its warnings too inconvenient for the outcome she demanded. And so it fell, ignored, forgotten on the floor. But what she failed to understand is this: the power she sought came with a price, and that paper, that warning she disregarded, bore the final truth. In her blindness, she ignored the one sentence that could have saved her: no curse leaves without consequence. There is an ancient principle in the spiritual realm: they that sow the wind shall reap the whirlwind. Hosea 8:7. She sowed destruction with her words, and now she finds herself caught in the storm of her own making. What she intended as your undoing has become her unraveling, not because you retaliated, not because you fought back, but because the Lord fights for those who are his. Exodus 14:14. He saw every whisper, every plan, every hidden act, and he answered, not with vengeance, but with divine justice. The trap has sprung, but not in your direction. And so she left that place, a place steeped in shadows and secrets, walking not into triumph, but into a sentence she unknowingly wrote with her own hand. Her footsteps were swift, but not steady. Her mind buzzed with anticipation, too loud to hear the whisper of warning that still clung to the paper she had dropped behind her. That moment, though silent, sealed her fate. That slip of paper. It was not a receipt nor some ceremonial gesture. It was a safeguard, a final act of mercy from the spiritual realm, a plea from the unseen, a thin thread of truth meant to pull her back before it was too late. But she had no room for caution, no space for discernment. Her desire for destruction had consumed her ability to perceive danger. This was her first great error, and it would be her last. She returned home with the vial clutched tightly, the weight of it humming in her palm, alive with unseen consequence. The house she entered was quiet, untouched by chaos. But it was there that the true battle began. She believed herself to be the author of a perfect ending. Her hands moved like clockwork, setting the stage for what she thought would be your fall. Her mind played the same scene again and again. Your trust, your vulnerability, your collapse. She saw herself victorious, finally elevated by the ruin of another. But spiritual law does not bend to fantasy. It answers only to truth. She believed she was operating from strength when in truth she was moving from woundedness. Her hand poured those 3 drops with mechanical calm, unaware that each one carried not just death but divine accountability. She imagined the silence after your fall, the quiet echo of victory. But the moment the liquid vanished into the cup, the very atmosphere shifted, not in the glass, but in her soul. What she did not see, what she could not see, was the invisible force already standing between you and that cup. A divine shield forged not by fear but by righteousness. You, chosen one, did not even need to lift the glass. Your very presence, covered, protected, called, was enough to provoke a reaction that undid her carefully laid plan. She had mistaken stillness for weakness. She had mistaken your silence for ignorance. But the heavens knew, the spirit realm responded, and the first crack appeared not in the cup, but in her. Her hands, once precise, began to tremble. Her breath caught like wind against a closed door. Her heart, the very engine of her ambition, stumbled in its rhythm. She looked at you and waited for collapse, but none came. You stood untouched, unaware, yet absolutely encased in a power she had never understood. You were never meant to drink that poison, not because you avoided it, but because heaven refused to allow it near you. And then the reversal began, not with fire, not with noise, but with a still, sharp unraveling. Her skin lost its warmth first, as if the light within her had begun to flee. Her vision dulled, her thoughts fractured. The house around her faded into a mist of confusion, and the clarity that once made her so dangerous deserted her completely. Her knees buckled, her mouth opened, not to curse, but to gasp for answers. The panic was instant, but it was not enlightenment. It was self-preservation, dressed in denial. She looked for someone to blame. The old woman, the vial, even you. She believed she had been deceived, that something had gone wrong outside of her control. But the truth, chosen one, is simpler. She deceived herself. The betrayal did not come from others. It came from the moment she chose vengeance over repentance, from the moment she saw a warning and discarded it like it was meaningless. The paper she never read, that fragile lifeline, held the very law she violated. This is not a poison of flesh, but of spirit. It follows the heart that wields it. If your heart holds greed, fear, or malice, it will not strike where you aim. It will turn back on you, and so it did. The poison, invisible to the eye but alive in the realm of spirit, traced the origin of hatred, not the target of it. It followed the energy that created it. It did not seek you because your heart held no invitation. It returned to her not as punishment, but as the fulfillment of a truth too old to argue with. It moved through her not only in body but in soul. It didn't just chill her skin, it unearthed the hidden things, the broken places she never healed, the jealousy she never confessed, the pain she never released. It whispered not curses but memories. Every bitter thought, every manipulative prayer, every lie she told herself to justify her rage. It all returned louder than her pride, more persistent than her denial. This was not misfortune. This was not karma. This was order, the divine balance at work. As it is written, you may be sure that your sin will find you out. Numbers 32:23. She tried to curse you, but she cursed herself, not with a hex, but with her own unresolved wounds. And now her story turns not toward triumph, but toward reckoning. The world chosen one does not yield to wrath. It responds to alignment. The spiritual realm does not obey emotion. It obeys truth. And in this moment, truth rose like a lion, not to destroy, but to defend, not to punish, but to restore balance. Let this be understood. The plan meant to destroy. You became the stage for your preservation. Not because you fought, but because the hand of the Most High already stood between you and the weapon turned. She thought she could curse what had already been consecrated. She believed she could silence a voice that heaven had already anointed. But what she never understood, what many still fail to grasp, is that light born of truth cannot be dimmed by shadows, and a soul held in divine covenant is not moved by the intentions of the bitter. You, chosen one, were not spared by accident or coincidence. You are not protected because you are clever or cautious. No, the hand that covers you is eternal. It is the same hand that measured the oceans and named the stars. It sees every thought before it forms, every motive before it is spoken, and it shields what belongs to it with unbreakable resolve. The moment she turned her spirit against you, she turned it against the very nature of truth, and truth, when rejected, has a way of becoming judgment. Now she lies there, her breath shallow, her strength dissolving into nothingness. But it is not merely her body that is unraveling, it is her illusion, the story she told herself that she was the victim, that her pain was justification for cruelty, that your light was a threat has shattered under the weight of consequence. She is learning what she never wished to know. There are spiritual laws as real and as immutable as gravity, and she has broken herself against one. You cannot wound what is rooted in love. You cannot curse what is wrapped in peace. You cannot bring ruin to what stands under favor. The law is simple, and it is just. Her failure was not only in the poison she prepared, but in the very spirit she carried. That venom turned inward, not by magic, but by mirror. For what we send out must eventually find its way home. And as she now fades, pale as ash, hands once steady, now trembling with despair, her mind is no longer filled with plans, it is filled with echoes, memories she tried to silence. Every word she spoke in malice, every look of scorn, every moment she delighted in your setbacks and scowled at your joy. It all returns now not as punishment, but as revelation. It plays like a song she cannot mute, a symphony of regret. But understand this, chosen one, this story is not shared for cruelty. It is not a tale told to relish her downfall. No, this moment is a lesson carved into time, a mirror held up to your own life. For though you were the target, you are also a vessel, one who must now see clearly what envy, comparison, and deception can do to a soul that refuses to heal. She was not alone in her descent. Others stood behind her, not with weapons, but with words. They did not pour the poison, but they stirred the hatred. Whisperers in the shadows, voices who fed her fire, who nodded when she raged, who said, "You are right, you deserve better. Look how they shine. Don't they owe you something?" They clothed their malice in sympathy, and she let them. But now that the storm has come, where are they? Scattered, silent, nowhere to be found. The ones who cheered her down the path of destruction have disappeared, leaving her to face the wreckage alone. And this, too, is a truth you must carry forward. Not every voice in your circle belongs near your heart. Not every kind face is for your good. Some carry storms behind their eyes. Some praise you while secretly hoping you'll stumble. Their advice will sound reasonable, even wise, but it will sit heavy in your spirit, like armor that doesn't belong to you. You must learn to tell the difference, because influence is power, and unchecked influence becomes invasion. The enemy rarely begins with fire, he begins with a whisper. Now let us return to the root. For this story did not begin with a vial, it began with a heart. Long before she knocked on that darkened door, long before she imagined your downfall, long before she spoke your name with contempt, something small began to rot inside her spirit. Not a scream, not a wound, a whisper, a question. Why them and not me? It started with glances, with silent comparisons, with the ache of unspoken jealousy. Every time your name was lifted in a room, it was like a needle to her pride. Every time she saw your joy, it reminded her of what she hadn't yet healed. Instead of confronting her pain, she fed it. Instead of rising, she resented. And from that small seed of comparison, an entire forest of bitterness grew. Chosen one, hear this well. Comparison is the slowest form of self-destruction. It creeps in gently, wearing the face of ambition, but it steals your contentment. It convinces you that your story is not enough, that your timing is wrong, that your blessings are unfairly small, and if left unchecked, it will make your heart unrecognizable even to you. She didn't become this version of herself overnight. It happened thought by thought, moment by moment, until one day she couldn't remember who she was before envy made its home in her chest. But you are not called to that path. Your journey is yours. Your light is not a threat to anyone else. It is a testimony of what is possible when a life is aligned with purpose. Do not measure your peace against another's applause. Do not question your worth based on someone else's spotlight. You are enough because you were created with intention. The Most High did not make you to compete. He made you to complete the unique call on your life. So walk in that, speak in that, live in that. Let her story be a warning, but let it also be a call to stay clean in spirit, pure in heart, and fearless in truth. There is still more to be revealed. The story is not finished. But now you see clearly, protection is not passive. It is the fruit of alignment. And the only poison that ever wins is the one you invite in. You did not. And that made all the difference. Now that the veil has been lifted and the weight of spiritual consequence laid bare, you must carry something deeper than knowledge. You must carry wisdom. Because the battleground chosen one is not always dramatic. It is not always cloaked in dark rooms or dangerous rituals. More often it is found in the mundane, the moments no one else sees, the quiet mornings, the hard conversations, the quick reactions, the unspoken thoughts. That is where light must be chosen again and again. The war is not just around you, it is within you. And to remain aligned with the will of the Most High to keep your spirit clean and your path clear, you must live not reactively but intentionally. Let your day begin not with noise but with stillness, not scrolling, not striving stillness. Even the psalmist cried, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10. In silence the soul resets. In silence the spirit listens, and in that listening clarity forms. The distractions fall away and your heart remembers what matters. Without this stillness, you will hear every voice but His. Then look inward. Before you speak, before you move, take just a moment to examine the soil of your own heart. Ask not with fear, but with honesty. Was I loving today? Did I make space for light? Did I allow fear, envy, or pride to take root without me noticing? This is not self-judgment. It is self-awareness. And awareness is a weapon in the hands of the faithful. The woman in our story fell not just because of what she did, but because of what she ignored. Her silence was not holy, it was avoidance. Her blindness was not fate, it was a refusal to look inward. Do not make the same mistake. Guard your heart, not with walls of suspicion, but with the wisdom to discern who and what you allow into your atmosphere. Some words sound soft, but carry poison. Some friendships feel familiar, but feed the wrong fire. If a presence repeatedly stirs anxiety, jealousy, or exhaustion in you, consider that it may be misaligned with your purpose. Not everyone can walk where you are being led. You are not rejecting them. You are protecting what God is doing in you, and as you protect your environment, protect your tongue. Your words are seeds. Every sentence you speak is a future harvest. Scripture reminds us, the tongue has the power of life and death. Proverbs 18:21. Use that power to speak life over yourself, over your enemies, over strangers, even when no one hears but heaven. Choose restraint where anger rises. Choose silence when judgment tempts. Words can wound, but they can also restore. Let yours become a healing rain wherever they fall. Now anchor yourself in gratitude, not the dramatic kind, but the quiet, steady kind. Gratitude that sees holiness in the ordinary, the breath in your lungs, the food on your table, the peace in your chest. Envy has no home in a grateful heart. When you return your eyes to your blessings, the need to compare dissolves. You remember that your story is sacred, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. Still, there will be moments when comparison rises like a tide. You will see others advance while you are still waiting. You will be tempted to ask, "What about me?" And in those moments, you must answer yourself with truth. My path is not behind, my path is designed. Speak it until your spirit believes it. Speak it until envy has no place to sit. But don't stop at defense. Do good intentionally. Every day offer something kind, not for applause but for alignment. Whether it's a message, a prayer, a gesture, each act of kindness purifies the atmosphere around you and strengthens the light within you. You cannot remain in darkness when your hands are busy building light. And lastly, let your emotions breathe. Pain unspoken becomes poison. Grief ignored becomes weight. Bitterness denied becomes blindness. Bring what you feel into the light. Write it. Pray it. Speak it to someone safe. Our Lord does not shame the hurting. He reshapes them. Come to me all who are weary, he said, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. Rest is not always sleep. Sometimes it is the peace that comes from being fully known and still fully loved. Chosen one, understand this. Divine protection is not passive. It is not just something bestowed. It is something cultivated. When you choose peace over reaction, light over resentment, truth over image, and presence over performance, you become a vessel too full of God to be filled with anything else. You are not simply surviving attacks. You are becoming a sanctuary, a walking testimony, a living rebuke to darkness, simply by existing in the light. And as you live this way, not perfectly but intentionally, you will begin to see it. The atmosphere around you will shift, not because you forced it, but because you embodied it. You won't need to chase favor. It will recognize you because light always finds light. So, walk forward. Keep your spirit clean. Let your life speak in the silence louder than curses ever could. You are not just protected. You are becoming unshakable. And now, with all that has been revealed of unseen battles, twisted choices, divine protection, and hard-earned truth, there remains one final chapter. A chapter not of revenge, but of revelation. Not to condemn, but to awaken. Because the story of that woman, the one who tried to curse what heaven had already crowned, does not end with the poison in her hands or the collapse of her plan. Her final lesson waits in the stillness of what comes after. And it is not just her story. It mirrors a question we must all face. As she lies there now, breath shallow, her body limp beneath the weight of her own intentions, what torments her is no longer the physical. It is not the pain coursing through her limbs, nor the darkness pressing against her chest. What haunts her now is clarity. She is not watching you fall. She is watching herself unravel. Every hidden intention, every word laced with bitterness, every moment she quietly celebrated your pain, is now playing before her like a mirror that cannot be turned away. But this is not punishment for punishment's sake. It is the mercy of truth finally unveiled. She thought she could be the author of another's downfall without staining her own soul. She believed she could control the script, cast herself as the victor, and walk away untouched. But what she never grasped is this. No story is written in isolation. Every action, every thought, every whisper in the dark is a thread in something far larger. A tapestry woven by hands, eternal, and in that tapestry, chosen one, you are a thread of light, not just an observer, not just a survivor, but an active part of a divine masterpiece still unfolding. Your life is not a random sequence of struggles and victories. It is a sacred story, one where every moment of compassion, every refusal to retaliate, every act of kindness that no one sees, weaves beauty into the eternal. So keep weaving even when the world shouts that you're behind, even when comparison claws at the edges of your peace, even when love feels costly and silence feels easier. Choose light anyway. Choose love anyway. Choose peace anyway, because every single time you do, heaven records it, and the darkness is pushed back just a little more. But to truly understand why this matters, you must look at the world that shaped her. The woman didn't start in malice.